Hi, folks. Welcome to Esoterica Live. Where we can hang out and talk about things, ask questions. It's been a it's been a fun couple of weeks around here, covering some stuff on Valentinian Gnosticism, which, aside from the sort of Gnostic texts of the Book of Jew and things like that, which are terribly complicated, I think Valentinian Gnosticism is some of the most complicated stuff out there, and I really just I don't know, all the aeons and all the things like that. I really, really enjoy all this stuff, the very crazy, structure of all that. So I really, really like getting into to the structures of these cosmologies and stuff like that. So it was a lot of fun to dig into the Valentinian texts. And I don't know about y'all, but I really think a lot. I always imagine history having gone different ways. I always think that history could have gone all kinds of different ways. And one of the ways that I think it could have gone is that Gnosticism could have really taken off, or what we call Gnosticism now could have really taken off, and that it really could have been the case that Valentinianism could have become something much, much bigger deal than it was. Which I don't know. I find that to be just a really curious thought experiment to imagine that the Orthodox version of religion, Christianity at least, emerged. And that it could have gone other way. It's did with Judaism, by the way. Judaism could have certainly have gone a very different way. And of course, today, really working to tackle the Emerald Tablet, which is a text that has baffled me for years. I've never really gotten around to understanding it, and it was a lot of fun to dive really deep into some of the history of the Emerald Tablet, because I think it's one of these things where this is such a widely known text, but most people don't really know anything about the history of this text, where it came from and how it developed and things like this. And so I really enjoyed getting into it. And it's the kind of thing I would love to sit down with Von Blottel and see the modern hermeticist Dan Trell's in the room, with Dan and Liana Saif, and really just pick their brain about this text, and look back at the old Julius Ruska piece on the Emerald Tablet, which, by the way, I actually included. It's in the public domain now. It's old enough to be in the public domain. So if you want a really in-depth analysis of the Emerald Tablet, that's pretty much the only major study of the book that I know of. You should take a look at that. If you read German, it's in German, but it's a really fascinating text. Let me brush up my German a little bit. I also like the fact that the PDF version I found has someone's notes in Arabic in it, so they really were knee deep in it. I really wish I would have liked to have known who that was. So it's been a yeah, Lord Ruku. It's if you look at the episode, the Emerald Tablet episode that's up now, if you look in the description where the recommended readings, there'll be a link to my Google Drive. And in the Google Drive, you'll see 3 articles, all from the early 20th century. That contains there's a book by Julian Ruska that's the analysis of the text, along with some of the text in Arabic. There is another edition of another Emerald Tablet text from the Middle Ages, and also there is a publication which is really neat of the very first time that the Emerald Tablet was published in Europe in the Vulgate form, with the commentary. That commentary being translated from Arabic into Latin. And so the first time that the first time it enters in the Vulgate edition, but probably the third time that Emerald Tablet had been translated into Latin, it comes, of course, with this commentary that was translated from Arabic, and they have the original Latin. It's not translated into English or any other language, so you'll have to read it in Latin, but the Latin's not terribly hard. It's pretty easy Latin, I guess. Pretty easy Latin. But so if you read Latin, check those out. And if you read German, check out that Ruska piece, especially if you read German and Arabic. It's really good. I don't read Arabic very well. I have a little bit of classical Arabic and Fusha a little bit, but my Arabic's not great, so it was a bit of a challenge. But yeah, it was a lot of fun working these past couple of weeks on this material. The Gnosticism stuff is fantastic, and I saw someone asked about doing an episode contrasting the Valentinians with the Sethians. Yeah, I think I will do that. Because the Seth, I've covered the Apocryphon of John, which in some ways is the sort of one of the principal texts of the Sethian school. But I think a more general introduction to Sethianism, Sethian Gnosticism will be a thing that I think that I'll do. Also want to get into some of the other minor Gnostic schools. And in fact, one of the things I really want to get into, I really want to handle at some point from the Nag Hammadi library, are the texts that aren't Gnostic, aren't Hermetic, but aren't Christian even. They're just some kind of paganism that we don't know anything about. There are several texts in Nag Hammadi that are other forms of religious philosophy that don't fit into these categories, and I think those are really interesting. But there were these other forms of spirituality that were really interesting. Dan, I definitely can do an episode on the true Gnostics of the time cube. Absolutely, that's definitely coming down the pike. Yeah, I'll do that April 1st of next year. So check for that one. So yeah, I'll look for that. Yeah. Also, Dan, we should figure out a way to do like a simultaneous live stream thing. I really think that would be a lot of fun. You and I to sort of bantering and chatting and answering questions and stuff like that. Because I really appreciate hanging out with you. So that'd be a lot of fun if we could make that work. So they can do that at some point. So yeah, it's been a fun week. A fun couple of weeks. I'm finally feeling better. I don't think I'm sick anymore, which I was for like 3 weeks or something, but I'm feeling a good bit better. And I have some really cool books here that I just got in from the Sfarim store, from the Sfarim store where they sell Orthodox Jewish books. And I have some pretty interesting ones here. I'll show you guys that I'm looking forward to getting into at some point pretty soon. Yeah. So yeah, Dan, let's figure it out. Let me shoot you an email later, and we'll figure it out and see how we do it. But yeah, also someone mentioned Mormonism. That's another thing I will eventually make an episode about, is the esoteric origins of the Church of Latter-day Saints, because there is so much neat, weird, occulty stuff that goes into sort of the world of the early LDS movement. And in fact, in many ways, I think of Mormonism as being a kind of Hermetic Christianity of a certain kind. And so I always tell people, like, if you want to practice a kind of Hermetic Christianity, well, just go to Utah. They got it going on out there. You've got all, initiations and secret rituals and cool magic underwear, all kind of stuff. So they'll sign you up. In fact, one of the most fun things I've done in a couple of years is we were driving through upstate New York on our way to Vermont, and we were driving through the area where a bunch of these sort of interesting, like I think the Fox sisters and all kinds of interesting sort of stuff went on there in the 19th century, and in upstate New York, and we were driving past where Joseph Smith was born, and I absolutely had to stop. And man, the Mormons do not mess around. That place was immaculately beautiful. And we got a private tour by one of the elders there. That was great. They were very, very interested in talking to us, and they were really confused why like Jewish people would want to stop at this thing. And I was just like, I could have stayed there for like hours talking to those guys. I just really appreciate them. And it was great. It was great. It was a lot of fun hanging out with the LDS folks. But yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I said, man, like the LDS movement does not mess around. Those temples are like really, really beautiful. So yeah, so welcome to a lot of the folks coming in. It's awesome to see some folks. I'm only going to be able to be on until 5 my time today. I got some kiddo duty to do later on this afternoon, so I can only be on for about an hour. So I appreciate you guys hanging out with me for an hour or so today. Oh yeah, we mentioned some of these cool books that I got that maybe folks will be interested in. This is a really cool copy of the Sha'are Ora, the Gates of Light. which is a really neat book. This is like one of the principal earliest texts to deal with the Sephirot in a very systematic way. You've probably seen the Latin the image of the Latin translation. There's like a bearded dude holding the Sephirot, and it's sort of a woodcut. It was done by Rhesius. Dan would know, right? I think it's Rhesius that did the translation of or the Porte Lucis. But this is a really cool book, and it has a boatload of commentaries. Look at all the commentaries on this book. These are all commentaries on the text. So this is a really cool volume that I'm really looking forward to getting into. So this is super cool. I've never read it in the original in the Hebrew. I've only read it in an English translation. So I'm super interested in that. Other thing I have here, right? Also super cool. Not even pulled out of the slipcover yet, folks. This is like, I feel super fancy. This is the collected works, Kitvei Rabbi Moshe de Leon. These are Moshe de Leon's complete works, not the stuff in the Zohar. So you may not know this, right? But Moshe de Leon wrote a lot. That much. That's not the Zohar. And so his other works, which are collected here, are Kabbalistic or proto-Kabbalistic in a certain kind of way. Yeah, don't they really make these books beautiful? Like, you know, when you're going to study books, you're going to study all day. I really appreciate the fact that these Haredi bookbinders do this. So this is really neat. I've never got to study the works of Moshe de Leon that aren't Zohar, that aren't the Sefer Zohar. This is them, and I'm really looking forward to getting into them. Apparently, they're weird. And what's really neat is I know that in one of these, one of the earliest quotations from the Zohar is in one of Moshe de Leon's books, where Moshe de Leon is making a point, and to drive his point home, he quotes the authority of the Zohar. So he's kind of quoting himself. He's kind of quoting himself to prove that he's right in another book. And it's funny that it happens. I can't remember which book it's in, but it's in one of these. So this is the Kitvei of Moshe de Leon. I'm running out of space here to put these books. I don't want to put them on the floor. That would be bad mazel. Next up, and these books are not expensive, folks. That's the great thing about these Jewish books. These books are not super expensive. The Otzriot Chaim. These books, right, are these two volumes, which are this also has the commentary of the Matok Divash. What's interesting about this set is that many of you may know this, but Lurianic Kabbalah does not have one form. Everyone knows Lurianic Kabbalah primarily from Chaim Vital, right? From Chaim Vital. But Chaim Vital's Kabbalah is just one version of the Kabbalah of the Arizal, of Itzhak Luria. There were other ones, right? There were other ones. This is another one. There's an entirely different system of Kabbalah, of Lurianic Kabbalah. There's another one, by the way, that's not this one, that's actually done by a guy named Israel Sarug, Sarugian Kabbalah, which was the first one published, actually, published in Italy, before Chaim Vital published Eitz Chaim, which is a complete mess. But when we talk about Lurianic Kabbalah, many people think that it's just like one thing, but it's several different systems. That is actually very, very, very complicated. The last book, and I think many folks will be interested in this one, even though this book is not very widely known. This is the Kanaraim of, and this book is the main systematic account of the Klippot. This is basically the encyclopedia of the Klippot. I've never read it before. It's kind of an obscure book, and even some people think of it is a little bit spooky. It's maybe a little bit dangerous, kind of. But this is the most systematic account of the Klippot that exists in Judaism. It's never been translated to my knowledge. I don't think it's been translated to any language outside of Hebrew. And what's neat is that you can see that there are, again, lots and lots of commentaries here on the text, right? So we have a really small text and then lots of commentaries. So yeah, this book is interesting. If there's anything like, I don't know if Necronomicon is not the right word, but this book is like kind of a somewhat, scary book in some ways, because of its connection to it's all about the Klippot, which which yeah, I'm looking forward to digging into. So at any rate, that's the haul from the Sfarim store. I tried to buy some of these technical texts every once in a while. Some of these are really hard. I've already looked at this one, and I know that I'm going to have a difficult time with it. But neat stuff. Really, 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 really neat stuff. Yeah, maybe I'll put a kamea or whatever, a kamea on it to protect me from whatever evil might be in it. But it's a neat book. So yeah, and I'll put a link. I'll put it in the chat real fast. So folks that want to look up the Klippot book, that you're welcome to. Let me find the find it real fast so I can put a link to it. Actually, if folks just want to buy it. Also, by the way, the other book I just showed you also has a copy of the principal book by the Arizal. I mean, not the Arizal, by Rabbi Azrael, which is really neat. Let me find the name. Let me find this book real fast so I can give it to folks if you want to buy it for whatever reason. Because I know that folks are interested in the Klippot for whatever reason. There's a lot of people interested in Klippot. I guess that's always the case. People like evil stuff for some reason. I'll put a link to it here if you want to buy it. One second, I'm looking it up now. Here we go. Never mind, that without stock. There we go. You can buy it there. It's like $20. I'm sure they do. And I'm sure you can find farm stores in Europe too. So if you want to buy it from there. Not that I'm giving you an endorsement of mycipher.com, but they do have a good selection and their prices are relatively good. All right, let me grab some questions from up here because I see some folks ask some questions. Yeah, I agree, Dan. When you really get a nice bookshelf of these Jewish books, they really look beautiful. They're not printed very well. I will say that they're definitely more pretty than printed well because they tend to want to fall apart. They tend to get printed on not so great paper. It's definitely not acid-free paper and stuff, but they're not printed as good as a Brill book, but they're also not $300 million. Let me see here. Okay, I'm not seeing. Yeah, $20 is cheap. Yeah, these books are not expensive, folks. If I tell people, if you want to learn to read Hebrew, if you want to read Hebrew, books get real cheap. You can buy all kinds of Jewish books, Sfarim, really cheaply. So you can buy a copy of the Sha'arei Orah with 5 commentaries on it for $20. So I would. That's a great way of doing it. The Book of the Law. Yeah, I do want to do an episode on the Book of the Law. Excuse me. Yeah, I do want to do an episode on it. When I was in Egypt several years ago, and I saw the Stele revealing, which was really neat to see it in person. And yeah, I'd like to do an episode on it. Just channeled books in general are really interesting to me. Whether it's the Book of the Law or the Enochian stuff, or in some ways the Book of Mormon, to go back to that topic, or like the Urantia book or whatever. These channeled texts, I think, are just really, really, really interesting. So yeah, definitely going to do one on the Book of the Law. I'm actually working back through the Kaczynski bio of Crowley, the Perdurabo bio, which is, I think, the best one. There's like 50 bios of Crowley. I think his is the best. So I'm going to work back through that and eventually do an episode on the Book of the Law, which, yeah, it's a super interesting text. I saw something up here about Lilith. Do you think Lilith worship is anti-Semitic? Nah, I don't really understand. I guess, I mean, maybe from the, it's bizarre to me, not because of any anti-Semitism or anti-Judaism, but it's just like Lilith is scary. That's what I don't really get about the people who are super interested in demons and Lilith and stuff like that. Is that, I don't know. I have 2 little kids. I have an 8-month-old and a 2.5-year-old. And the idea of them dying at night is genuinely terrifying. And the idea that like crib death, which is basically what Lilith was responsible for, the idea that she's out there like killing kids is just like deeply, deeply scary to me. Like the idea that I might walk in and God forbid my children could be, dead in their crib. I don't know. That idea horrifies me so deeply. And the idea that someone would be like excited to mess around with an entity that does that, that's kind of what they do, is they hate human beings and they kill the human beings' children. That's a terrifying idea. So I don't know. I find that I don't know. That's what I've also found about demons. Same with angels, by the way, too. People who are very flippant about wanting to commune with angels or invoke angels and things like angels are terrifying. They are terrifying. Why would you want anything to do with an angel? These are terrifying militant entities, and it blows my mind that anyone would want anything to do with those things. I'd rather deal with like the Russian mob than deal with an angel. So yeah, and especially demonic thing, Klippot, all this sort of stuff like this. Wouldn't, if they're real, and I don't know that they are, I don't want anything to do with them. Like I'm like, yeah, I just find that to be like, I find that to be super scary. But other people, you go to their occult Reddit and people are like, I want to summon a demon. I'm like, why would you do that? Like, would you invite in a gangster into your house? Like, knowing that they could do something, would you do that? Of course you wouldn't do that. Then why would you do that? I don't know. Demons aside, I think that, I don't know, people aren't like, the fact that people are so flippant about it makes me believe at some level they don't believe in them. Because if they believed in them, right, they would take them seriously, and then they would like not mess around with them. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being a coward, but I don't know. Of all things to be a coward about, ancient malevolent creatures that don't die, I'm gonna be a coward about that. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, they can be real Chad all they want about that stuff. I'm not gonna get involved with it. But yeah, the angel, like I said, the angels too are also quite terrifying. They are not the cherubic little toddlers you see in these Renaissance paintings. At least in the literature, they're basically God's soldiers. They're like the Marines of heaven. And so why would you mess with those things, right? Like they're not kind creatures. They kill indiscriminately people. I don't know. I wouldn't want to mess with them. For me, that's my take. I don't know. If they existed, I would be genuinely terrified of them. And even if I don't think they exist, I still wouldn't want to mess with them. But so, the still behind me, it's just a little still, just like for essential oils. It's just a little short of a liter. So just like a nice little, I don't know what the, it's not exactly, it's something like just a decoration, something decorate. It's like a decoration. I just think it looks neat. And it's made of copper, comes from Portugal. So, let me see other folks, and saw some questions when I was going on my rant about angels and how scared of them I am. But, yeah, so yeah, Tatamon, yeah, the demon in The Exorcist was Pazuzu. Pazuzu is a demon who scares away Lamashtu, who was sort of the Lamashtu was the demoness that killed children. She's sort of the precursor for Lilith, and so he scares her off. And so it's not uncommon to find amulets with his image on them used to scare off other demons. So so using demons against other demons seems to have been the order of the day, at least in some cultures. Yeah. So do I have any plans to speak in public or do anything in person stuff? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I definitely intend to try to get out into the world again. Like I think the rest of us want to be out in the world. And one of the things I really want to do is try to do some traveling and go around, maybe to the East and West Coast, maybe over to Europe and stuff, and eventually begin doing some like public talks. One thing I really would like to do for Esoterica is try to organize like weekend seminars where it's sort of an intensive seminar where there's like a text and we do I'll do some lectures, and we have like study groups and things like that. And so it would be sort of like, if we can raise enough money basically to make it, so that I can, eat and get some payment out of the deal. Get the flight taken care of, whatever, if we can make it so that it subsidizes itself, and I'm able to walk away with, something that I could, really work on doing, like, some kind of public things. I am not live on Shabbat. It's not Shabbat here yet, just FYI. It's definitely Shabbat in Israel, but as you can see behind me, there's a lot of sunlight. We're still a good bit away from Shabbat. So I would like to do some live things, and do some live things and have them be basically like weekend seminars. I think that would be a lot of fun. Also, just it's for me always more fun to really get into the weeds of a text, really get a deep dive into something, and hang out with people, right, and get to meet people. And so it'd be great to do that with people and in person. So that would be great. Yeah, I'd love to come to Belfast. I would love to come to Ireland. Like, every time I've ever seen a picture of Ireland, it just like seems like the most beautiful place on earth. So love to do that. Thoughts on psychedelic mysticism as compared to spiritual mysticism? I guess I wouldn't make a distinction, really. I mean, I don't I don't really think of. I guess I would loop them all together, and say that insofar as the brain is doing the mystical thing, whatever that is, it's absolutely the case that psychedelics could and should be one of the avenues, one of the avenues by which one could acquire those kinds of experiences. So yeah, I don't at all have any sort of, I wouldn't separate those off. I think that psychedelic drugs used carefully and responsibly are absolutely one mechanism by which one can have powerful mystical experiences. So sure. So wow. Let's see. Someone asked about alchemy books. If you look at the description for the episode this week on the Emerald Tablet, you'll see basically my top 6 books on intro to alchemy. So I definitely recommend checking those books out if you really want to get interested in getting deep into alchemy and learning about it from the scholarly perspective. You check out the reading list that's on there. So yeah, those are all great texts. All right. Yep, I definitely want to talk about the Cathars and the Manichaeans. Also, one of the things I want to talk about with the Cathars is the very real possibility they didn't exist. Which again, I'd be curious to see what Dan Luttrell thinks of this. He's much more acquainted with that period than I am. But there's a growing movement of people that basically think that the Cathars may have not existed, or only existed in a very minor way, and that so much of what we have from that time period are these basically invented polemical tracts. In the same way that witches didn't exist in the early modern period, basically, that the Cathars may have been lived in the minds of the Dominicans at some level, and that rather than existing as a institutional church that was defeated in the Albigensian Crusade, that they may have not existed in that way. So I'm curious about that claim, and I want to do some more digging about it and see what they think. But yeah, the Manichaeans also really interesting. I really would like. It's such a pity that so much has been lost of Manichaean literature, that we have the Codex Cologne, which is that tiny little book, and that's all we have, basically. It's such a pity that all that's been lost. Yeah, I mean, I think that from what I've read of the Cathars, and I have to go look at this more. And again, here, that they, I think that the brothers existed, and they existed as a non-institutional form of religion. And I don't think that they were sort of like a Cathar church or something like that, like that, down there in Carcassonne or whatever. I don't think that, but I think that they existed at some level, but I don't think that they were I don't think that they were organized the same way the church described them as being organized, a sort of organized heresy that was a threat to Christendom. I don't think that was the case, but I'm not so sure. Let's see what else. I see some other folks. Yeah, Mandaeans. Yeah, I actually have a copy. I've been reading the Genza Rabbah, which is neat. It's really neat to read Mandaic because it's so close to Babylonian Aramaic that if you read Babylonian Aramaic, you have to learn to read the Mandaic alphabet. But it's really close. It's really, really close to how Babylonian Aramaic is, and so one can read the Mandaic with not much difficulty. And even words like Genza Rabbah, right? It's like the same from the root as Geniza, which is really, really neat. So, and so it means like big, the great storehouse. So yeah, definitely want to do something on Mandaeanism, which is just a fascinating religion. I'm so glad that those people are still alive and, still doing the best they can, considering, given all the trouble they've gone to. But, yeah, the necessity of apostolic poverty thing is really interesting, Dan. How the church basically fixed that. I love how they managed to basically because they were the radical Dominicans that that really wanted to that really got suppressed, I think, largely by the church. And so the way that they fixed that stuff is really, really fascinating. Fixed, but yeah, apostolic poverty was terrified the institution, I think, whether it was the Dominicans or I guess the Cathars. So that stuff is super fascinating. Let's see. Let's see other folks. Do the Cathars wrote the Voynich manuscript? No, I don't think so. The Voynich manuscript was written in the mid 15th century, so a good bit after the Cathars had already been suppressed by the Albigensian Crusade. So no, I don't think so. Also, I'm not convinced that the Voynich manuscript actually even has an underlying language. I worked on it for years. In fact, I worked on the European Voynich transcription project, which standardized the transcription from Voynichese to the machine code that we can read now. And I just think if you look at it from a statistical mathematical point of view, there just isn't much to indicate that there's actually an underlying language. Although there was that really cool article that came out a couple months ago, that showed that there are several more scribes working in the Voynich manuscript than the two that Currier discovered. And also, of course, right, Currier discovered there's two different languages of Voynichese. So yeah, eventually I'll do one on the Voynich, but I don't know. I think it's a fraud. I think that the book is a fraud, and I don't think there's an underlying. I don't at this point think there's an underlying language. So I don't think deciphering it's the order of the day. But right, could totally be wrong. Not only could I be wrong, right, but things that people thought were uncrackable get cracked. I think back to just early this year, right? The 340 cipher of the Zodiac killer was cracked. That no one, people thought it was basically not going to get solved. Maybe it was nonsense, and sure enough, they solved it. So they solved the 340 cipher, which is very difficult to solve ciphers that are that small. And so we have a lot from the Voynich, and it certainly could be the case that that it could be solved. If it's a fraud, why was it made? To make money, right? There was a lot of money to be made. There's a lot of money to be made with books in the Middle Ages, and there's a lot of money to be made in weird books. And I think that in the court of Rudolph II, which is where that book was floating around, I think there was a lot of money to be made, and I think someone did make a lot of money on that book. We know that Athanasius Kircher was approached about it, and he really had no interest in it. And I think he had no interest in it because I think he basically recognized it as a fraud, I think. And so, yeah, I'm not convinced there's underlying language, but you can see it's right, like literally back on my shelf. You can see my, in fact, I still have over there the copy that I got from Yale, from the Banky Library when it was still, you can only get it in black and white photocopies back in like 90s or the early 2000s. So I still have my copy from way back in the day, and it's all full of my notes trying to work through it. I'm sure I'm missing questions. Yeah. Let me scroll back up and see other stuff that people have asked. So hard. No, psychoanalysis and mysticism. Yes, I will do one on psychoanalysis. Need to brush up on my Jung though, but yeah, I definitely want to do one on Jung and Freud and people like that. So that will be a lot of fun. Although I'm not a big fan of Jung. I know that's like a thing you're not supposed to say if you're interested in Hermeticism, but I've always I'm not so big of a fan of Jung. I much prefer, like, I'm more of a fan of Lacan, which it's going to get me in all kinds of trouble. But I more the more and more I get older, the more and more I like Lacan. I really find Lacan to be fascinating. I think he was nuts, but sometimes you got to be crazy like a fox. So I really like Lacan a lot. Yeah, I prefer Freud and Lacan more. Um, but yeah, I do buy the whole Deleuzian, or really the Guattarian critique of Lacan that understands the desire as a lack. I do buy that critique, and I do think that this Spinoza-fied reading of Lacan is a better reading of Lacan. So, but yeah. Also, I think there's a lot of esotericism in Lacan. You know, one of my favorite moments in his lectures was he goes on and on and on trying to give examples of how he thinks the structure of desire works. And one of the times that he gives what he thinks the structure of desire is, he says that the only person in history that's ever understood desire correctly, aside from him, obviously, was Heidegger, the Christian mystic, right? 14th century Christian mystic. He said, and he wrote her name up on the board, and he said, "This is the only person I've seen that understands desire correctly." It was Heidegger. And so what's fascinating about that, right, is he picks not just a mystic, but a woman mystic, a Begin. And if you've never read Heidegger, my God, it's some of the most mind-blowing, beautiful poetry ever. It's just, she's my favorite of the Christian mystics, I think. So if you never get the chance to read Heidegger, definitely read about her. She was very, very impressive. Very impressive. But yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Jung was certainly smart. I don't doubt that. Heidewick is spelled Hadejick. Let me see how to spell her name. Heidewick of Brabant. Or Antwerp. We don't know where she was from. We don't know anything about her. There you go. Heidewick. So I'm all about, yeah, the Begins are awesome. Speaking, going back to our conversation about the Cathars and stuff, the Cathars get so much, they get so much press. Everyone wants to focus on the Cathars. But the Begins and the Becards are just, I think, geniuses. And so I really wish they got more attention. I don't know why they don't get more attention, but there's something about like the conspiracy theory stuff with the Dan Brown stuff. Maybe the Cathars get so much of the attention, but the Brethren of the Free Spirit, also super interesting, of course, and the Bechenes, especially the women Bechenes that wrote. I've done an episode about them, and I think that they're just really, really interesting. In many ways, more interesting than the Cathars. But they just don't get the same kind of press that the Cathars do for whatever reasons. It's the Freudian Oedipus complex, Babylonian precepts to Sabbatai Zevi. What? I don't know what that means. Sabbatai Zevi didn't worship the devil. He didn't worship demons. He worshipped basically himself. Or he had this, yeah. Poor Sabbatai Zevi. I feel so bad for him. I really like him. Like, I don't believe he's the Messiah, but I feel bad for him. I do find, what's his name? Nathan of Gaza to be really interesting. And again, Sabbatai Zevi gets all of the press, but Nathan of Gaza was the real genius there. And his writings, which have never been published really in English, I'm super interested in Nathan of Gaza, much more interested in many ways than other people. I think he's far more interesting in many ways than Sabbatai Zevi. yeah, definitely do an episode on those guys eventually as well. Let's see. Let me see some other. Yeah, thank you guys for the kind words. What do I think about Satan fooling all the nations with witchcraft? I don't know. I don't like. Yeah, the devil, like, I don't know. I've always found the devil to be a kind of a silly character. Like, yeah, I've just never like been that interested in the character of the devil. But yeah, he's interesting, and yeah, yeah. I don't know. I'm not that interested in that stuff. Let's see other questions. Um, Sorry, folks. I'm scrolling back up to try to grab some more of the questions that I missed. Yes, I know everyone's shocked that I'm not a big fan of Jung, but you got to be honest. I need to read more Jung, honestly, but yeah, I mean, yeah, I'll definitely do something on the Book of the Dead. I guess you mean the Book of Coming Forth by Day, which is the Egyptian text. So I'll definitely be doing one on that. I'll definitely be doing a one on the Book of Coming Forth by Day. That book is just so difficult to summarize, right? Because you're dealing with 180 something spells, and so there's just a lot of heavy lifting to do when it comes to trying to spell out that. Because I really want to go back and do an episode on the pyramid texts, on the coffin texts, and eventually on the Book of the Dead to talk about how they developed and how basically there's sort of a democratization of the afterlife. And that democratization of the afterlife tracks to this Egyptian magical literature. So yeah, I want to do that stuff as well. Yeah, I think I'll do maybe something on the Yazidis. Although I will say that both Let's Talk Religion and Religion for Breakfast have done excellent episodes on the Yazidis. So I would recommend checking those episodes out. They're both really excellent. So it's one of those things where I don't want to like recover ground that's already been covered, but maybe by looking at some of the text of the Yazidis or something like that, getting a little deeper dive into stuff may do something like that. Yeah, Akhenaten, yeah, may do one to the hymn to the Aten, which is this interesting text that everyone likes to claim that somehow Akhenaten and Moses were related to one another or something like that. But not that I don't think not that there was a historical Moses, but so I'll take a look at that as well. Yeah, the Akhenaten stuff is really, really interesting. Yeah, let me scroll back up. What do I think of Freud? I like Freud. I don't know that he's right, but I like him. I kind of like his techniques. I don't like him translated into English. Folks know they did all this. They did all this stuff about when they translated him in English, they tried to make him sound more scientific. So rather than just using the normal German word for investment, which is what he uses in German, they translated it as cathexis, like, so they make him sound more scientific. So those that stuff is just a mess. It's a lot of those this stuff is a mess. Yeah, the religion for breakfast thing. Yeah, that comment kind of took off, which is kind of funny. Speaking of which, we may be working together soon. We may be working together on a joint project that'll be just a short little thing, but it'll be really cool to work with Andrew. He's a really great guy, so I'm really looking forward to working with him. So I think we might be doing a joint project sometime this summer. So, all right, what are other stuff? So much cool questions. All right, let's see here. Sorry, I'm just looking through. Yeah, Religion for Breakfast is a great channel. Yeah, I mean that's part of the reason why I started to do YouTube was channels like him and Jackson Crawford and other folks. I was just so impressed by the quality of the content they were making that I was like, well, throw my hat in and see if I can't do something similar. And I don't think my content's as good as his, but we're all figuring it out. So I'm trying to figure it out and do the best I can. And I really appreciate religion for breakfast. Just anything that elevates religious literacy at a higher level. Or at least in the United States, religious literacy is a very, very poor situation. People have very low religious literacy, and so channels like Religion for Breakfast and Let's Talk Religion do an excellent job of trying to fill that gap in. So I really admire their work. Really admire their work. All right. Are you willing to share the knowledge of the practical use of this shimmer brush? I don't know what the practical use is. It's just, I mean, I don't know. It's a name. Again, there's always like this idea that you have this secret name of God and you can do all kinds of different things. There's like 50 different secret names of God. My favorite one, I think, is in the Sefer Malbush, which I'll be doing an episode on here in the next couple of weeks, which is like literally a name of God that you like write on a special garment, put that garment on, and it gives you magical powers. So I'll be doing an episode on the Sefer Malbush, which is a really great text of ancient Jewish magic from probably late classical period. So let's see. We have some sort of online on how old something must be before you'd willing to cover it. Not really. I mean, I part of what motivates why I cover what I cover is that in order to get a grasp of esotericism, one of the real problems that I think people run into when studying topics in esotericism is that they have a basically non-historical approach, right? They have basically a non-historical approach. And I find that greatly distorts their understanding of how texts come into being. For instance, many people think that the Emerald Tablet is like, thousands of years old. Well, it's really not. It's like basically we think it's a 9th century document. But, you have people saying, oh, it's written by the Sumerians or it came from Atlantis or this kind of weird stuff. And so what you see in that, right, is that it's just there's a lack of basic historical understanding of where these texts come from. And in order to really lay that out, you have to get some historical idea about this is where this stuff all came from. And when you do that, right, when you begin to do that, you begin to lay the framework for understanding what comes later. And so part of the reason why I don't touch the more later stuff yet, like the Golden Dawn or Crowley or whatever, even the like Rosicrucians, which I'll get to them at some point. The reason why is that I need to lay a much more firm structure on the channel's content before turning to that stuff, because it can look like that there are connections where there aren't, and it also mistakes connections where they actually do exist. And so part of what is going to have to happen is that laying that foundation is what has to come first. And so that's what I think the first couple of years of the channel are going to be doing, is just really laying that foundation so that one, the episodes can begin talking to each other, which you probably have already seen, right? That they're already doing that, right? The episodes are now beginning to talk to each other. And two, once I lay that foundation, then I can go off to say, look, this is how these other ideas relate back to these other ones. So I think getting that historical perspective is really key, and I'd much rather lay that foundation now before turning to the more modern stuff than do it the other way around. So that's my method, as much as there is one. As much as there is a method, that's the method. So, all right. Do I think the access to the Akashic records is real? No, I don't think there's no such thing as the Akashic records. I don't think so, but maybe. I don't know. The Druze faith. The Druze are super interesting. I really appreciate these sort of hermetic versions of religions that have survived, like the Druze and the Yazidis and the Sabaeans, whoever they were, and all that sort of stuff. I really, really appreciate that stuff. One is it's really cool they survived, and two, it's really great that they hold on to their traditional beliefs. So yeah, they are super, super, super interesting. How is Freemasonry seen in Judaism? Good question. I think I know of some Jewish people who are in the Masons. Like, I'm not a Freemason. All the Freemasons I meet are super cool people, I'll say. I've had the chance to talk to some Freemasons, some brothers in the Freemason movement. And I've always just found them to be really kind, thoughtful, inquisitive, nice people. But I don't think there's any, like, I don't know that I would join an organization that's just basically all men. I don't know what I think about that. like fraternal organizations. I just don't know what I think about that. But every time I've ever had an experience with with Freemasonry, I've always liked the guys that are involved in it. Is River Jewish? I don't know that River is Jewish. I'm not sure what his religious background is. Although I do know that River is a super cool guy. The Nematan, he's a super cool, thoughtful guy. And I really appreciate him. He and I were planning on working on something at some point. It never quite materialized. But he's a super great guy, very thoughtful person, and he was doing really smart things as a practitioner. So yeah, definitely check out the Nematan. He's a great guy. He's a great guy. Let's see here. The historical origins of the Masons. Yeah, that would. Yeah, I might do something on the Masons. Yeah, the Masons and the Illuminati, which are also great. I like the Illuminati. I'll do one on the Illuminati at some point. All these sort of little secret organizations around the Rosicrucians and stuff are super fascinating. I do like that the Illuminati has like basically existed for like a year or something, and now they're the evil bad guys of everything. I really appreciate that. I'm sure that they really, really like that. I really appreciate the historical Illuminati. I think Jay-Z's a member now. Good for him. Good for him. Do I Hermetic tradition trace back to a single person? No, I think it was always syncretistic. I don't think that Hermes Trismegistus was a real person. I think that Hermeticism was a dynamic, evolving religious group, and I think that it existed always as a syncretistic movement. In fact, I don't think one can't imagine Hermeticism existing without Middle Platonism and Stoicism and Judaism and indigenous Egyptian religion. So no, I don't think it was ever sort of one sage taught Hermeticism. I think that it was always a syncretistic, very syncretistic. Let's see. Wow, there's so many great questions. Yeah, the Illuminati. I mean, and also the groups like Skull and Bones and stuff. I did see some D&D questions. Oh boy, here we go. Did folks see they came out with Ravenloft? When did this happen? There's a Ravenloft book. I have it right there. I just got it. They now have D&D 5th edition Ravenloft. Who knew? So great, right? They still don't do Planescape. The bastards. They need to do Planescape. Telling them, D&D people, Wizards of the Coast, whoever gods you are out there, y'all need to do Planescape and don't mess around with this Ravenloft stuff. I don't know why they're going to listen to me, but that's my opinion. Oh, let me see what the Dungeons and Dragons questions were. I'm not seeing them now. Oh boy. If you have a Dungeons and Dragons question, please ask it again. But yeah, it's new Ravenloft. And it wouldn't be hard to make a 5th edition Planescape, whatever. So yeah. Yeah, it is cool. I'm not saying that Ravenloft is bad. It is great because you get all like it's all like, you know, it's like basically like the classic movie monsters, and it's like super goth or whatever. It's great, but Lady of Pain, folks, Lady of Pain's where it's at. I love the physics of that world. I don't know. Something a Warlock for Patreon. Yeah, no. I have not played a character in Dungeons and Dragons since I was like 15 years old. I've always DM'd, always made the DM. One day, eventually, I'll actually be able to play a character. And it's gonna be something outrageous, like a Tinker Gnome maybe, or a Bard. I always wanted to do a Bard, and Bards are actually pretty cool in 5th edition. All right, folks, I'm coming down to the end. There's so many. You guys have so many great questions. How do folks think? Yeah, Bards are super strong in 5th edition. Like back in the day, like Rangers, man, like Rangers used to be crap. Rangers used to be way overpowered, and now Rangers are no good. It's amazing how this kind of stuff goes. But yeah, it'd be fun to be a Bard. What do folks think of the Emerald Tablet episode today? I'm kind of curious what people thought about it. It was a lot of fun to make. It was really great to trace a lot of that stuff down. and it was a big thing to trace a lot of that stuff down, but I really liked it. It was a lot of fun to make it. Also, someone mentioned absinthe. I don't know if I've mentioned this right, but there's a good chance this summer I'll be making absinthe commercially. Right? There's a good chance this summer I'll be making absinthe commercially. I don't know if it'll be Esoterica absinthe or anything like that, but I just but I think I'll be making absinthe. I've already I'm in talks with the distiller and in a local distillery here in Detroit. So you may see on the live stream a bottle of absinthe made by me. So that may be coming along here in just a bit. Yeah, Dan, I did mention Newton. In fact, I had the picture of the manuscript of his translation of the Emerald Tablet. So yeah, no, I don't have any ideas of the name or anything. That'll probably be up to the distillery. I'm just going to be making it for them. I'll be making it, and we'll be working together on it, and I'll be teaching their master distiller basically how to make it. But yeah, I don't know any of the details yet. We're still sorting out the details, but he was impressed enough by some absinthe. Some absinthe that I came into possession of. Right, he was impressed by it, and we may be making some. So still in the works. But hopefully I can get that. The one thing I want to get on it is maybe get the Esoterica glyph on the back of the bottle or something, just as a fun thing. So we'll see. That'll be a fun thing for the summer. Hopefully it'll work itself out. And if you can order it online, I'll let you know. I'll let you know where to get it. But yeah, so yeah, you can do that. Yeah, I don't know if anyone wants to see any more absinthe related content on the channel, but I'm happy to do some more stuff related to absinthe. So yeah, but yeah, and I'm also happy to yeah, and I think also, Jenny, funny you mentioned this, Jenny. Yeah, I think one of the things I do want to do actually is when we're making it, I really would like to document how it gets made, so that people can see the whole process and know what goes into it, and I think dispel some myths about the production. And also, I think it's just be really cool to yeah, make basically a documentary on how absinthe gets made. So that would be a lot of fun. So yeah, Jenny, that's a great idea, and I was thinking the same thing. So yeah, maybe I'll be making a short absinthe making documentary for the channel. Let's see. Yeah, it was like the Emerald Tablet episode was a lot of fun. Again, a lot of folks don't get to really dive deep into that text, and I've never dived that deep into it before. But it was really great to dig up some of these early commentaries on it and things like that. I'd like to sit down with well, I mentioned this earlier with Dan, sit down with Leanna Safe and Von Blottel and pick their brain about it, because what's really weird about their books, both of their books are incredibly great books. Some of the best, probably the best literature on those topics out there right now. And they're absolutely great. But what's interesting is neither of those books deal with the Emerald Tablet at all. It's just absolutely, it's absolutely not there. And so in the footnotes, Von Blottel talks about it, but neither in the Safe text nor in the other one did they deal with it, which I found is really weirdly conspicuously missing, considering it's probably the most influential Arabic Hermetic document in terms of its influence in the West. But it's just not there in their analysis, and I don't know why exactly. I don't think it's because they're bad scholars. That's certainly not true. They're amazing. Both of them are amazing scholars. So yeah. So I don't know. I'd like to pick their brain a little bit about and see what they think about it, and what further thoughts they have. So that'll be an interesting conversation if ever. I think Professor Safe is actually now in Amsterdam, so. I'm going to plan to get back there this summer or this winter, God willing, and hopefully get to do that. All right, folks. Well, I'm sorry this live stream is not going to be as long as normal. I usually like to do these for an hour and a half. I feel like you don't really get your rhythm to about an hour and a half in or something. At least that's my experience. But I have to cut this one short, a little shorter. But it's because of I got kids, folks. I got to take care of my kids. But yes, also Marilyn, I'm also going to do an episode on like how to study this stuff academically, or at least my journey and how I did it. So we'll see how to do it. But Anyway, folks, I'm going to check out. I'm going to take off, but I'm going to keep doing these live streams every other week. And, I really like hanging out with y'all. And it's a fun crowd of people. I mean, anytime it's like Dungeons and Dragons and demons and Safer Yetzirah and, whatever in the chat, it's, it's going to be a good time. So I'm all about it. So at any rate, I want to wish everyone a happy end of the week. If you observe the Sabbath, I hope that you have a wonderful Sabbath. If you don't observe the Sabbath, I hope you have a wonderful night. I hope you have a great time and you can relax and just treat yourself well. Treat yourself well and treat your people well, because everyone deserves that. Everyone deserves that. So I'm going to go hang out with my kiddos and maybe have a glass of absinthe this evening, and bring Shabbat in, do some reading, and hang out. So at any rate, I just want to again say a big thank you to all you folks that watch the episodes, that watch the channel, that subscribe, that share the content. Sharing the content obviously really helps the channel a lot. So the more you can share the content around, helps the algorithm, blah, 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 the all powerful algorithm. So share some stuff around. Again, many thanks to the patrons of the channel, some of which are in the chat. I really appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to make Esoterica possible. I mean, straight up, I'm not kidding. Without the financial support that the channel gets, I couldn't do this. And so I couldn't do it long term, that's for sure. And thank you. So I really appreciate you. But I really appreciate everybody. Everyone really makes this channel possible, from liking it, subscribing it, supporting it, whatever. You guys are awesome, and I really, really appreciate it. And I am humbled and thankful for your support and your hanging out with me. I appreciate it. Maybe we can all hang out in person at some point in the future. So, all right, folks. Well, much appreciation. Shalom and Shabbat Shalom. Good Shabbos. And I hope folks have a great night, great week. And I'll see you guys in a couple of weeks for another live stream. So you guys take care.